Good afternoon and welcome to today's panel discussion, Mind the Gap. We'll be exploring the challenges underpinning the current skills gap in engineering this afternoon. My name is Dr. Jonathan Truslove and I'm the Education and Skills Lead for Engineers at Goudarz UK, and I'm delighted to be chairing today's conversation. Before I let our panellists introduce themselves, I first wanted to frame today's conversation. So the engineering sector is currently facing a major skills crisis. A recent survey by the Institution of Engineering Technology found that 93% of UK engineering companies with a sustainability strategy do not have the skills to fulfil it. That's only 7% feel they're able to actually deliver on climate targets, and 53% of UK engineering firms think that net zero by 2050 is actually achievable for them. And similarly, Engineering UK has highlighted that there is a risk of an education and skills gap that could hinder decarbonisation and fall short of the UK's net zero 2050 targets. In the words of Mike Hardisty, the head of environmental sustainability at Engineering UK, it's clear that we could be sleepwalking towards a net zero engineering skills shortage. So these findings indicate that there's a significant challenge for engineering education to prepare both our current and future workforce to respond to global challenges. And as engineers, we have played an integral role in getting humanity to the place we're in today. It's thanks to transformative feats of engineering that we've achieved the unprecedented levels of quality of life experienced by many parts of the world today. However, at the same time, engineering has played a fundamental role in contributing to the unjust and unsustainable practices that dominate the world today. Evidence has shown that human development, the advances of technology, are directly linked to increasing carbon emissions, biodiversity loss, and human exclusion. So it's clear that as a profession, we have a unique degree of influence, and it's our responsibility to use this power for good. To achieve this, we need engineers to feel empowered to deliver solutions that prioritise people and planet over profit. Recognising this, the question we're going to be asking ourselves today is how can we equip the engineers of today and tomorrow to meet the needs of all people within the means of the planet? So we're really keen to have this as an interactive session today with as much audience participation as possible. So to do this, we ask that you help us shape this conversation by asking the questions on your mind, whether these come as a result of the challenges that you're experiencing in your current practice or thoughts that occur to you during the conversation and during today's session. To ask a question, we ask that you please either raise your hand using the function at the bottom of the screen or submit your question in the chat and we'll call upon you to ask that question. We'll try our best to get through as many questions as possible within the time today, but please help us out by keeping your questions as short and as sweet as possible. If you're not asking a question, we ask that you remain on mute for the duration of the call to ensure that our panellists can be heard clearly. So, if that's all good, without further delay, let's hear from our panellists. First, I would like to welcome and invite Lynsey Clarke to come up and give a brief introduction as to who you are. So, Lynsey, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you all and really nice to be here today. So I am Director of Sustainability at Jacobs. I have a split role. My role my day job is about making sure that we're embedding all of our sustainability and environmental capability into the way that we deliver solutions at Jacobs, more specifically through our projects and through our bid pursuits. And I also have another role where I sit within our corporate team and look at how we can leverage the commitments that we've made as an organisation to actually deliver real growth for our stakeholders through our delivery plans in Europe specifically. So my connection to the topics today is quite interesting on both sort of areas of that. So at Jacobs, our core purpose is to create a more connected, sustainable world. We set some really sort of clear sustainable business goals around developing solutions that are resilient, deliver environmental and social gain, and really going to leave that legacy that we need around the climate emergency and other areas so we can demonstrate we have that sustainability impact. It's really an unprecedented time. I know we say it all the time, but the last 5 years in particular, I've never in my whole career seen it so busy, so in demand in terms of the drivers, the policy, the commitments of not only our business, but the people, the clients that we work with. The requirement not just for specialist sustainability skill sets, but for fully integrated and embedded skills across our whole business, regardless of sector, and that leads to competition, obviously, as well. And a key part of what we're having to do to operationalize our own commitments and our own sort of drive towards those sustainable solutions is to reshape our teams and the capabilities that we need so that we can focus on those changing and evolving requirements. So that's influencing our recruitment. It's again an unprecedented hot market at the moment, but also our in-career development. So how are we using agile careers to make sure that we actually are evolving our teams and their capabilities to meet these requirements as well? So again, it's really nice to be here and I look forward to the discussion.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lynsey. Next, I'd like to introduce Toni McLaughlin. Welcome, and could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, thank you for having me along. I'm really excited to be here today and have constructive conversations. As JT said, my name's Toni. I am in my fourth year studying an MEng in aeronautical engineering at the University of Glasgow. So I'm here kind of bringing the student perspective, personal thoughts, but also hopefully thoughts that are represented by student voice as well. I have been the president of Engineers Without Borders Glasgow chapter at the University of Glasgow for the past 2 years. Still heavily involved with the chapter, but have shifted kind of my focus to being in my second year now as an Engineers Without Borders UK strategy champion. And so within that, I'm able to support other students, and it's great seeing Nottingham Trent here. They're one of the student chapters that I'm supporting, so it's great to see them. But I am able to support students, hopefully challenge and be a kind of in between students and academics and educators at university, to see the integration and implementation of sustainability within our engineering curricula, to best equip us to feel more confident to go out and engineer sustainably as well. And a wee kind of personal about me is that I'm really interested in engine design, especially for kind of commercial aircrafts, but I'd like to look at taking a sustainable approach within that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, when I graduate, I'll be going into that kind of field. Thank you again for having me.
Brilliant. Great to have you, Toni. Next, can I invite Catriona Schmolke to come up, unmute and say hello. Welcome.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. I've been asked to come today with my Royal Academy of Engineering hat on, and the Royal Academy of Engineering, I'm a trustee and the Vice President of Fellowship Engagement. And for some, you might not know what the Royal Academy is. The Royal Academy is a charity and a royal charter, and it's there to promote engineering at the highest levels, influence policy with government, and also support industry. And so you could say we're a very small charity, but with a great big hopeful influence. Also within the charity, I chair the Engineering Leader Scholarship. So for any undergraduate students out there, we have a financial scholarship open for you. If you want to go on, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and that has a financial scholarship there. And we've been running that financial scholarship for undergraduate engineers for 27 years, and we have 750 in that cohort who help to shape our view of what the skills are and what the workplace is like to become. So I come from that perspective. And then I also need to just advise that I've had nearly 40 years. I know I started when I was 4, nearly 40 years in industry as an engineer, building sustainability before it was a sexy thing to talk about, with Jacobs, the same as Lynsey. And, you know, I really come with the industry perspective as well about what we need. So really looking forward to the conversation and hopefully contributing on what the Royal Academy of Engineering is doing, as well as my own personal perspective from industry. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Catriona. It's great to have your experience in industry and the Royal Academy here. And then finally, last but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Goudarz Poursharif to give a brief introduction as to who you are. Welcome.
Thank you very much, JT. So hello, everyone. Good to see all of you here, and also the students at the Nottingham Trent University. I'm the Associate Dean Education for the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences at Aston University. I'm a chartered engineer. also a practitioner member of the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, IEMA. And for the past 10 years, I've basically tried my best to embed education for sustainable development at various institutions that I've worked with, University of Sheffield, Aston University, and also mentoring colleagues in other universities to embed education for sustainable development. I've worked closely with Engineers Without Borders and colleagues there. I came to the UK 20 years ago to study sustainable development from an oil-based country where everything is around fossil fuels and everything. So I thought a little bit differently to my peers back then, and everybody thought I was a little bit mad. But still going on with that madness, and created various different programs around sustainability in different universities. Prior to my current role, I was Director of Professional Engineering at Aston University. So I've worked closely with industry in degree apprenticeship programs with various different manufacturing companies in the West Midlands area. So again, I worked closely with kind of bringing that industrial perspective there, but also ensuring that they are also being constantly retrained and trained in various aspects of sustainable development and education for sustainable development as part of their skilling and reskilling. So looking forward to having constructive conversations and discussions with all the colleagues on the panel.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Gary.
Over to you, JT.
Thanks very much. Great to have your experience on here. As you can see, we've got a fantastic panel today, lots of expertise and lots of insights into education and practice and industry as a whole. So thank you very much for joining us, and again, good afternoon to you all. So the first question to kick off today's session, and to give our audience a little bit of some time to think of and ask some questions in the chat, so a reminder at the bottom of the bar in Zoom, please post your questions in the chat function. So to our panelists, in your experience, are we equipping engineers with the skills to combat the global challenges we are faced with today and for tomorrow? So I'm sure a very easy question to kick off. But first we'll start, I think we'll go to Lynsey, I think, to kick us off.
So I think in general terms, we've definitely seen an increase. So obviously the work that's being done in the universities is working in some senses. We're seeing a much improved kind of understanding of sustainability, and actually an expectation around what we will be doing as Jacobs as well. It's part of the recruitment of our early careers. There's a growing expectation of the graduates and the young the early careers professionals of wanting to work for an organization that takes this seriously and is going to support that. We're definitely seeing that. So the motivations are there. I think there's still a limited kind of focus on, industrial context sometimes that we have to work with. But I'm also interested in the fact that it's not necessarily always about the technical skill sets. The sort of the skill sets that we're looking for are people that are, adaptive, resilient, challenging the norm, innovative in their thinking, willing to sort of stand up and go, actually, can we do this a different way? Should we do this a different way? And it's those skill sets that I think we need to invest a little more in, to make sure that the people that are coming into their careers now, we don't know what they're going to be doing in 10, 20 years time, and how they're going to need to mold their skill sets and their careers. So we want them to be able to be the people that can do that and can develop and evolve with a very rapidly changing market requirement.
That's great. Thanks very much, Lynsey. I think I'll pass over to Toni for that same question as well. Are we equipping engineers with the skills to combat global challenges for today and tomorrow? What's your experience as a current student and as an EWB networking champion?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult question, and I think I can look at it in multiple ways. I think the short answer is not yet. And maybe that's me being a bit pessimistic. I think that there is definitely, kind of as Lynsey said, we're definitely taking that step forward. I can see that now within the engineering curricula, the courses that I'm getting delivered, there's definitely that highlight of sustainability, global responsibility, renewable energy, however it's highlighted. And I feel like it needs to be embedded deeper. I also think, kind of from my own experience, I'm in my 4th year now, and I only had an option, it's an optional course to study renewable energy and sustainability. So I did choose the course, obviously, and there is roughly 300 of us that are taking this course, which shows that students do want to learn and do want to equip ourselves in this area, which is great. And the great thing with this course is it is highlighting engineering, but it's also looking at systems thinking approaches as well, to give us skills away, obviously covering technical, but going slightly away from that and further and deepening our knowledge, which is great. But it's an optional course, and I think that a lot of these skills and the delivery and the content we're getting is really beneficial. It's just happening maybe a wee bit late. And I also just wanted to highlight as well the fact that I think sometimes it can be discipline dependent. So for myself, I studied aeronautical engineering, and it's only really happened within kind of my 3rd year and 4th year now that sustainability is kind of being talked about more prevalently. However, I've got friends who study civil engineering and mechanical engineering, and Glasgow University, they deliver Engineers Without Borders UK Engineering for People Design Challenge for our 1st year civil, mechanical and mechanical design engineering students. So there's tons of positive feedback with that, and part of the EWB Glasgow chapter, a lot of our member base are civil students, are mechanical students, because they're getting that course in 1st year, loving it, seeing that they can engineer and make change, and are wanting to continue that. So I just wanted to maybe drop that in there as well. I think there's definitely more being done, which is great, but I think we can always keep improving. But yeah.
That's great. Thanks very much, Toni. Just a quick reminder to post any questions in the chat as our panelists are talking away. Catriona, over to you. What's the Royal Academy perspective and your personal expertise and experience in this area?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with Lynsey and Toni, so I won't repeat, just assume that I'm in sound agreement. I think, let me take the Royal Academy's perspective. We have a task force which brings together educators, policymakers, industry. It's called the Sustainability in Higher Education Working Group, and I can 100% agree that the findings of that group, who have been out to look across all education and interviewed industry, that it's patchy. It's patchy. I hate to say it's a little bit like a postcode lottery, perhaps. You know, if when students are maybe selecting their educator where they want to go, they might be more interested in going somewhere where sustainability is a core part of the curriculum. What we're seeing is that it's actually quite difficult to find good information across every institution. So where the Academy is working hard is we haven't got time to wait for every institution to get up to speed to create new curricula. So I think what we're going to be working with is just to cut across a lot of that and start to create minimums. And I know we're going to come on to what other institutions are doing. So from the perspective of the Academy, we see it as an urgent crisis. We have to move fast and get more embedded core skills. And for me, that's a lot of that is about language. It's about understanding their role as a professional engineer. It's understanding how they conduct themselves. So therefore, from an industry perspective, and I've hired thousands of graduate engineers over my too long career, some of the things I would like us to think about is not just the fluency around what does climate action mean, what does it mean to, what do all these words mean, but also to equip our engineers with the ability to have conversations, to be more confident, to understand the business environment that they join when they leave university. Because the key to moving forward in any of this is also the fact that there are a number of other blockers that we need to move and bring into the conversation. And therefore, the maturity of being able to sell basically why we should do something differently, why we should challenge. I see that as a key skill as well that is perhaps missing and could be a valuable alongside the technical awareness. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Catriona. Goudarz, over to you. What's your experience in this at university and also with your work with industry as well?
Yeah, I think we are not doing enough. We should be doing more as universities, as educators. But I do feel, in my experience, a lot of educators don't have the confidence to actually go into those realms. So they may be good at delivering one module on renewable energy, for example, right? Because that's their background, whether power systems or mechanical side, but whichever way it is. But when you come to what we are looking for, when we're talking about education for sustainable development, it needs to be something holistic. So to be using like circular economy terminology, if you do an input-output analysis, you have the students going to this degree. What do we want out to come out of that degree? We want some people that are future agents of change. They can change the things around them, whether it's within a company setting or NGO or a community level initiative, whatever it is, and then to be able to influence other people, to get people on board on their ideas, because that's the only way that we could have that exponential growth factor. Otherwise, we won't catch up with what we need to be doing, because we're, as I think everybody agreed, we are moving too slowly. So a lot of the times we are talking about soft skills. So people say soft skills, but I like the terminology that you use, JT, is crucial skills. These are now the skills that every engineering course needs to have. And the problem is that 95% of the educators have been educated in a system where that didn't fit or wasn't there. So when it comes to course design, from my point of view, so from my own institution or from external examining at other institution or visiting other colleagues, there are things that I see that basically questions whether we understand what we are supposed to be doing as educators. A lot of the colleagues. So I saw a course the other day. It was called Mechanical Engineering with Sustainability. I was like, so are you saying your mechanical engineering course, the other one, is not sustainable? Like, why would you title your course like that? So that's one side of it. Now from industry, again, having engaged with industry for 3-4 years in the course level design, collaborative design of degree apprenticeship program for BEng professional engineering. Again, the value that I've seen is that, yes, at higher level, you have industry recognizing that gap, skills gap. But when it comes to the line managers, when it comes to the training managers, when it comes to the HR people that are in charge of those putting together those training kind of schemes together, or working with universities to design a course, actually, no, they don't know what they want, and actually they don't value it that much. They value still, okay, things like how many exams do we have, or is the course rigorous or not, rather than, so if you want to bring skills that bring together that kind of the way of learning that we are advocating for education for sustainable development, which is around real life problem-based learning, team-based learning, multidisciplinary work, they don't still see that value, because they're still looking at that traditional engineering education curricula. They think that's what is served, should be there as a rigorous course. I put it in quotation mark, because if there aren't 100% exam on every module, it's not rigorous enough. So all these issues are basically, I think there are blocks in innovation, and we need to think and take education for sustainable development as a pedagogical model, pedagogical innovation in our teaching and learning, and transform the way we teach our courses, especially engineering education. Because in other courses, they already have that history of project-based learning, problem-based learning, simulated kind of real life situations and things like that. Ethics, for example, has been embedded in other type of social humanities education. So we are lagging behind, and I don't think we are doing enough on that front.
That's great. Thanks for that, Gaudi. Yes, it seems a really kind of holistic thing across the board from all our panelists around. Just more needs to be done at that stage. There's some great questions coming in from the chat. So I think this first one builds on what's already been discussed. This is from Jacob. So we discussed a fair amount about preparing emerging graduates and students with these skills. But the question from Jacob is, what can be done to reskill and upskill those already in the workforce who haven't previously engaged with sustainable engineering? So recognizing that the skills gap, both the current and the emerging skills gap, we'll see in the future. So Lynsey, I wonder if you have any insights onto that question around the role of reskilling. Is it something that's prevalent at Jacobs in the work that you're doing there as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've, whether it's driven by a market shortage of skills, a hot market, or whether it's, because we absolutely need all of our staff to be have these embedded skills and crucial skills, as you called them. All of these drivers have come together. We've kind of got a few initiatives. There's a big focus as within other organisations on agile careers. So that has a number of benefits for the employee around, having a diverse career as well and maintaining their engagement and challenge. But it also means we can start to think about how we bring different skill sets and different perspectives and diversity into some of our teams that are perhaps traditionally have gone through the same system. And that's working really well. We provide them with technical mentors, we provide training, making sure that actually they do get the value as Goudarz said around actually just getting their teeth into doing something, rather they can go on courses and externally and that can be beneficial, but actually getting involved in delivery and actually applying that mindset and learning on the job is really valuable way of building those skill sets. I would say as well, we've got another model that we're applying to, which is perhaps more wholesale. So developing skills academy approach, where we are saying actually we've got a group over here that perhaps we don't need so many engineers to be applied in that sector or within that particular discipline, or it would be beneficial if they were more flexible to work across both the energy and the transport sector, for example, as things start to change. So how do we develop them as individuals to allow them that flexibility to apply their skill sets in different environments or different ways? And we run that as an intensive kind of program of support to them to develop a cohort of people, I guess, challenge them within that. And then there are all of the normal typical ways of developing a career in a different area as well, support including geographically, so going and learning overseas and or in other geographies and bringing back that experience into your own geography is another thing that we like to support as well. I'll let Catriona perhaps add on to what I'm saying, because she's probably got some additional things to mention.
Yeah, that'd be great. Over to you, Catriona.
Oh, right. Nice. I think, I totally agree with everything that's going on inside the organisation. I think, let me just give a couple of other perspectives. When 20 years ago, when we didn't really talk about sustainability in engineering, I want to be very clear, there was a lot of sustainability going on. It was just perhaps referenced in a different way, from an efficiency or how to make something work better. And I want to be sure that we recognise that there is an enormous body of experienced engineers, scientists, technologists, individuals who are doing such a huge amount of work. And for me, one of the key things that the Academy is looking at is how do we connect them to the future engineers and solvers of the future, and create more than just that nice relationship where they can talk about career, but where we can really create much more of a mentoring, a two-way mentoring. And I have to put a shout out to the engineers who are getting to the end of perhaps what would be seen as a traditional career. They hit the age of sort of 55, 60, and we lose such a lot of knowledge, and we have to retain that knowledge. And I ask all in industries, they have to remember to engage those people. But unfortunately, I think there's a little bit of a focus on just bringing in the young ones and expecting them to be able to deliver. It has to be two-way. So that's my shout out for the senior engineering knowledge, the talent, think of how much is invested. We have 750,000 engineers in the UK. And if some of them are dropping off and going off onto the golf course, that's not good. We need to retain them. They need to feel valued. And I know we'll be working hard on that. I think the other thing that's really important, and if you would allow me I saw another question about what do we do about the younger ones. So the Royal Academy has a STEM teachers programme. So we have This is Engineering. So 58 million views of our collateral on This is Engineering to help one of those. Well done, Michael. I'm speaking for you there. He's saying I'm one of those senior engineers in the chat. We can try and reach children. We can try and get them enthusiastic. We need to stop thinking that to be an engineer, you have to have maths and physics, period, end of story, or you don't get through. We need to start broadening that funnel and making it more exciting. And that's going to take a massive shift in everybody's perspectives. But one of the things we are doing is we have a teachers program. We're upskilling the teachers to make STEM and STEM subjects more interesting. So again, that's just one wee specific I would just throw out there. So don't forget, I understand we need to focus on the youngsters, but let's not lose that talent that goes off at the other end. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good perspective there, Catriona. I'm wondering I hope that answers your question as well, Nicola and Karen, who've asked about the younger generations emerging and bringing in that kind of skill set early on before pre-higher education. Building on that, I think for Toni and then over to Goudarz, on working with educators within university, what can be done to kind of inspire some of that change. And Toni, you've talked previously about the student perspective, advocating for that change and working with engineers to kind of have more of that, what Catriona said, that language recognition as well, and inspiring people into engineering, but also around how it links to sustainability. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that around the kind of student perspective and engaging with education.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot. A big word I like to use is kind of communication, and I think that's clear in a lot of areas for both between students, between educators and academics and industry, institutions. All of that is very cyclical, and I think that communication is key, as cliche as it sounds. For me, it's been very beneficial that a lot of the academics at the University of Glasgow have been very supportive with the EWB Glasgow chapter. And with that, actually, there was a collaboration between Glasgow and Strathclyde, and we hosted a panel event actually discussing sustainability and education, where we brought academics, recent graduates, and also representatives from industry to the table. And basically, what we wanted to discuss was the fact that no one is really to blame, but how do we solve this problem? And there was a lot of key messages that came out, and I'm probably kind of echoing a lot of thoughts here, is that time and resources are required to make necessary changes, and I completely recognise and sympathise with that. However, I also feel like within courses, there's definitely ways in which we can explore sustainability without having a complete overhaul. And I know Catriona mentioned it, but simple things like we're not able to change the fundamental laws of thermodynamics or aeromechanics and fluid mechanics. However, looking at efficiency, looking at the materials that are used within that, and highlighting that for aviation perspective, we want lighter aircrafts. What materials can we use to make this lighter? What ways in which we can reduce drag from certain components and configurations. Not only does that cut costs, which is great, and that's kind of what we're taught and focused and hammered with, but also the fact that with reducing drag and making aircraft lighter, we require more fuel. We burn less fuel and we produce less CO2. And so that reduces emissions as well. And so a lot of this can be brought forward, but it's just missing. We're not getting that complete highlight of not only are we looking at technical aspects and economic factors, but also we are helping improve the environment and becoming more sustainable, but it's just being left off of conversations at the end of lectures. And again, I suppose kind of coming back from, or to the student perspective, having these conversations with your academics is extremely important. If you're interested in research, if it's B-Eng projects or M-Eng projects, then have those conversations. There might be a gap that you want to explore, that they also want to explore. But also, and again, I think that we can't just put the blame on educators. We also need to go and find things for ourselves too. And I think that I've been really fortunate with the work or working with EWB Glasgow, those opportunities, and then with Engineers Without Borders UK, I've been really fortunate to meet network and meet new people and get new experiences that is helping me become more confident in my abilities to not only engineer and have the technical knowledge, but also have some substance to back that up, and looking at super skills or critical skills that have been implemented through kind of my university career, but also extracurricular career as well. So hopefully that kind of covers all that.
Yeah, it's brilliant, Toni. Thanks very much for that. I think that kind of leads on to a question from John and Karen as well, which I think I'll pose to you, Gaudi. Excuse me. One from John. Across engineering, there are discipline-based technical skills that are tailored to the discipline. Toni's touched on that a little bit in her answer as well. So how can we overlay sustainability skills in a common way across all disciplines? And then Karen also mentioned around what Spain, University in Barcelona are doing around embedding sustainability as a compulsory module for all students. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that piece?
Well, I think the way we design our courses, you could have common elements where you have multidisciplinary kind of modules that are delivered based on bringing perspectives and strengths of all the different engineering disciplines together. And that takes a lot of burden from educators, because you are facilitating learning, and a lot of learning is happening already within the peer groups, but people with different strengths are bringing that together. I'll give you an example of an electrical engineering student that was paired up with mechanical engineering students in the Engineers Without Borders engineering challenge. And he in his testimonial, he said, he got into thermodynamics so much, and he said, this is the first time I'm actually using thermodynamics, and I'm being supported by 2 other mechanical engineers in the same group, and kind of changed his perspective about anything. If we go back to the origins of engineering, the rounded engineers would have had a bit of knowledge about everything. And I think our education needs to come out of the silos that was fit for industry 2.0, industry 3.0, right? And we are looking at now industry 5.0, which is human-centered industry and education for that, which is bringing those elements back, not entirely, but as much as we can, to kind of bring those skills together in one engineer as a rounded engineer. So that goes into the course design of how we can do that, and where we can actually create common modules and expose the students to work with each other on common problems, and then where we can have subject specific. But that transfer of knowledge already happens in those common modules, because you will have that interchange between the various different perspectives and skill sets between the students. And a lot of the learning happens within the groups, so that peer learning element of that. The other thing is that we are looking at courses where they are, because the sustainable development and sustainability is such a fast changing landscape. You can't rely on educators, for example, solely, that their knowledge may not have been updated for the past 5-10 years, right? So how do we get around that? We've done that with our MSc Sustainable Engineering that we've designed at Aston. So one of our modules, which is Pathways to Net Zero, is entirely delivered by guest lecturers every week from different sectors. So we have people from Energy Systems Catapult, we have people from Carbon Trust, people from the aviation sector. How can we get to net zero in the aviation sector, for example? And then students actually are exposed to those, and they can choose their dissertation projects with those, or they can do placements with those companies or those organizations. So that you can bring that, you need to make sure that your courses are always being replenished with the best, with the latest cutting edge knowledge from industry as well. And then that goes a little bit back to industry and their engagement with educators. Are we doing that or not? So that kind of, it needs to be the dialogue between the educators and the industry. Another point that I would like to mention on Catriona's point is we have seen that in the higher education as well, that lack of training for our educators. So one of the things that I, for example, propose here at Aston, we do a course called Postgraduate Certificate in Learning and Teaching in Higher Education. So all of our new recruits at Aston University as lecturers, they all have to do that. It's a 9-month course. And I've actually proposed that we need to have something there around education for sustainable development, and it covers all of the lecturers across the university, not just engineering. But yeah, so that pedagogy needs to be taught, and then they can cascade that through to the way that they teach the students later on.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Gary. We are getting close to the end. Lynsey, do you want to have a quick response to that?
Literally, just quickly, I think I just wanted to talk about the integration piece, because I think I'm not going to turn down a sustainability module that's mandatory. I think that's really great, and I would be supportive of it, absolutely. But all of these courses are going to have mention of things like needs assessment, objective setting, options development and appraisal, purpose, value, in terms of value engineering and things like that. And all we mean for much of this is that we're doing that through a wider lens. So the criteria that's going into some of the things that the needs that you're talking about are just more than just the traditional needs, and it's how we're integrating sort of that perspective as well, just through all of the process steps and all of the key components of, regardless of whether you're a civil, mechanical or aeronautical engineer, there are these core language sort of elements, and it's how do you sort of put it into that core context that I think is fundamental. The other bits then add to that, I think, as well.
Can I also jump in with that as well? Sorry, GT.
So I'm going to go for very short, concise.
I'll be very, very quick. I was just going to say as well that I feel that all of this is extremely important, and I think obviously we were talking about super skills, but this should be taught from first year, second year, so that you've almost got this mental checklist in your head. So by the time you're third, fourth, fifth year looking at projects or whatever, that's already there. Your academics and educators shouldn't need to teach that. It should already be highlighted earlier on, and you're constantly improving and implementing and growing with that. So it was just to kind of echo and add a wee bit to Lynsey's point.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Toni. Unfortunately, we do have to draw this conversation to a close. We are now at 1:45. If I can hold everyone on the call for at least another 1.5 minutes, just to kind of close up and summarise what our kind of next steps and calls to action are. But thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing their experience and expertise with us. It was fantastic to hear what you guys are doing and the experience you bring to this really important area of work. And thank you so much to our audience for joining us today and helping to shape this conversation. We hope that discussions we've had today have provided you with some inspiration and some food for thought as we navigate these issues together. Just to flag quickly, some of the work that engineers at Goudarz UK are doing and to look out for in the new year, we are working on a global responsibility and engineering competency framework that does cover a lot of these skills, these crucial skills that we touched on today, that underpin and support and really go alongside the kind of technical skills that have been talked about today as well. So please do look out for that. As well as that, we also are doing some work with the Royal Academy of Engineering around a visual learning map for embedding sustainability within engineering education. So again, please look out for that in the new year and get in touch with us as well if you're interested to learn any more about those pieces of work. If you'd like to continue on your own journey to understand the challenges faced by the sector today, whilst developing your own crucial skills, we highly recommend that you register for our upcoming design challenge, Reshaping Engineering. So it's delivered in collaboration with Azuko, and the challenge will provide student and professional participants from around the world with a unique opportunity to reshape how engineering is taught and practiced to ensure a safe and just future for all. So you'll need to commit approximately 20 hours, about 4 or 5 hours per week of your time over the month of February in 2023. This time will include a mixture of live and recorded sessions led by Engineers at Goudarz UK and our collaborators. So we really encourage participants who are in employment to consider how this opportunity could collaborate to chartership, or could contribute, to chartership or CPD accreditation, and to explore with your employer how the challenge could be embedded in your day-to-day work. And we've had some fantastic feedback from the pilot earlier this year, so I strongly recommend that you secure your place just now, and the link to register should be in the chat now. We're also very excited to announce that our Global Responsibility of Engineering report has launched today. So this draws on the experience of engineers working in the built environment sector, and the report explores the extent to which global responsibility is embedded in engineering practice, the practical barriers that hold back progress, and the actions required to transform the culture of engineering. And the link to read that full report is in the chat below. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about this topic, about crucial skills, check out our latest thought piece, Crucial, Not Soft Skills, that are also linked in the chat. So thank you so much for joining us today, to our panelists and to our audience. Hope you have a great afternoon.